Elon Musk is working on a lot of like implantable stuff, implanting things on the spinal column to be able to like make the human a computer.
We're not going to reverse our chronic disease epidemics if we don't change the way we're living.
We're changing the mold. We're shifting.
This is the Next Frontier Files.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries.
Hi, friend. Welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host, health and lifestyle coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. We've been going 7 years and counting. So welcome back to also the Next Frontier Files. If you're just joining us, quick catch up. Like I said, we're celebrating 7 years of Salad with a Side of Fries with 7 episodes, one for each year, built around the same rapid fire question that I ask every guest ever since week 1. At the end of their interview, I ask a handful of rapid-fire off-topic questions. The last one is always, in your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness? Last week, we opened with year 1 as a health show just getting off the ground when a pandemic hit. And you can go back and catch up on that one anytime. Not to worry, you don't need to hear it to follow along today. This week is all about year 2. So year 2 of Salad with a Side of Fries spans August 2020 to August 2021. Same pandemic, different challenges. We survived being sent home. Now what? If the theme of year 1 was getting back to basics, as we discussed, the theme of year 2 is 2 words that show up everywhere in that year's episodes. And certainly it showed up without me planning on it. I only noticed it when going back now. And those 2 words are precision and permission. So you'll hear both as we keep going to discuss year 2. Keep an ear out. And before we get into it, I want to tell you about the Happy Healthy Hub. Hub members get a new recipe every single week, curated articles, extra discounts from me and our partners, interview episodes in full video, including some behind-the-scenes content that you won't see anywhere else. And you get access to our community board where you can connect with each other and ask me anything 24/7. So all of this is yours for just $12 a month, or you can prepay for a year at one time. You get 2 months free. So that's a year for $120. What a bargain. Now, members, your recipe this week is for fluffy almond flour pancakes. So not only are they yummy and another breakfast option with better for you ingredients that I think even the littles will love. I found this recipe through one of our guests from year 2, Dr. Casey Means. So a fun little connection there. So remember, to get this recipe and access to all the Happy Healthy Hub benefits, go to asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership. That's asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership. And to me, really, the Happy Healthy Hub is another benefit to you and a way for you to give back to this show that has given you so much for 7 years and counting. All right, back to year 2.
August of 2020. The world is still mostly closed. Salad with a Side of Fries keeps going into its 2nd year, and something shifts. Year 1 was survival. Year 2 is what happens when the emergency workarounds start becoming permanent. 106 episodes this year. A full-length episode and a bonus nutrition nugget episode every single week. Telehealth stops becoming a workaround and starts being infrastructure. Longevity science leaves the research journals and shows up in casual conversation. And a body positivity movement that year 1 simply touched on becomes one of the loudest threads in the whole show.
I think it's already started. Virtual training has really garnered, like when I was with Physique and we'd started, especially with the pandemic, everything is out there. trainers need to learn how to train virtually so that you're able to give the same in-person experience while you're behind a computer, because we all know video to video is you lose a dimension. But I think that it gives accessibility, and I think that that will continue and will give people the flexibility to be in a gym, in a studio, as well as being in their home.
Even just the telehealth that's been happening too. My kids, we've had appointments via telehealth for just like simple checkup type things. And that is huge. We don't have to travel anywhere for that. And the same for the exercise on Zoom, gives another option. Zoom was out there, but not really anyone knew about it. Now we all know about it. We do it daily, sometimes too much.
Chad Levy and Amy Marshall joined us together. So naturally, their next frontier answer is almost one between the two of them. And listening back, neither of them sounds like they're describing something new. They sound like they're describing something that became normal very quickly and something that worked so well for people that it's going to stick around instead of being left behind as a stopgap for extraordinary times only. So to me, that rings to the permission idea. Whether either of them use that word or not, to me, it's permission.
Here's what's strange about that permission. It works so well, it disappears into the framework of life and health. Telehealth and virtual fitness doesn't just succeed. They become so normal that they're never brought up again as a frontier in any later year of salad with the side of fries. It's not because it fails, quite the opposite. It stops being a prediction and becomes like any other Tuesday. Some frontiers don't get a victory lap. They just quietly become the floor everyone stands on. Longevity gets its first real spotlight in year 2 as well, and it arrives sounding almost casual about something enormous. Listen to Chris Burres.
I think it really is the path that David Sinclair, even Dr. Gundry talking about the longevity paradox. It's that we can live a lot longer. And I love Dr. Gundry's phrase, which is, I want you to die young at a very old age. And I think that that's something that can happen and that we're going to see hopefully in my lifetime. I read a book recently that was like, hey, we're really close to probably not dying. You should be doing everything you can to make sure you cross that threshold, because it would kind of suck to be the last person to die of natural causes.
The last person to die of natural causes. I remember laughing when Chris Burres said that. And now looking back, he wasn't entirely joking. We're now truly 7 years later doing full episodes on regenerative medicine and lipid panels.
Longevity in year 2 isn't only about living longer. For one guest, Natasa Billeci, it's about what's sitting on your bathroom counter. Her full episode gets into stem cell-based skincare products as part of an anti-aging routine, years before stem cells become a familiar word in regenerative medicine conversations, in later years of salad with the side of fries.
The next frontier in wellness is definitely integrating AI into how we age, how well we age, and really propelling forward the precision medicine conversation. That would definitely be it for me.
Two guests, Chris Burres and Natasa Billeci, both reaching for the same word without comparing notes. Precision. That word is going to come back. Year 2 also gives salad with the side of fries its first real look at toxin exposure. One guest, Tim James, has a personal stake in his next frontier answer, which is worth knowing as we listen.
I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag here, but we're starting to a new division of our product line, and we're going into super absorbable products. So when you put it in your mouth, it's already in your bloodstream. It probably doesn't even make it to your gut. There's so much inflammation on a cellular level that people are having a really hard time getting nutrients into the cell. Our first product is inflammation reducer. It'll be 100 times more powerful than most of the inflammation reducers on the market. So that's the new frontier, is these super highly absorbable products that are very easy to take.
Sure, Tim wasn't just predicting a frontier. He was previewing his own product launch. And yet that doesn't make the underlying question about cellular absorption uninteresting. To me, it just means that maybe we take the solution with a grain of salt while recognizing that it highlights an underlying health need or concern and the importance of quality supplements. So those two pieces are really, to me, the next frontier that he shared. Friend, a quick pivot for a moment. A few minutes ago, you heard Amy Marshall talking about telehealth and virtual training from when she joined us back in year 2 of Salad with a Side of Fries. And I'm still in touch with Amy all these years later. And she read my book, Uncomplicating Wellness: Ditch the Rules, Quiet the Noise, Reclaim Your Life. Here's what she said. I just finished reading your book last night, and it left me feeling empowered to make some good, healthy choices to help better my life, both nutritionally and mentally. A huge thank you for getting such important, meaningful, and life-changing information into one easy-to-read and understand book. So many will benefit from it, changing lives one read at a time. That's Amy. The same Amy who was already thinking about accessibility options back in year 2 of this show. And so if that appeals to you, life-changing information in an easy-to-read and understand book, I got you. So text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 833-801-0500 to learn more. Again, that's text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 833-801-0500.
This is the Next Frontier Files. Back to year 2. 56 episodes after Jeff Chilton said it in year 1, Jenn records a full-length episode in year 2 with no guest at all, simply titled Back to Basics. No frontier question, no rapid-fire answer, just Jenn sharing with listeners in no uncertain terms that what they need isn't the next thing they scroll past on Instagram. It's instead a return to fundamentals. Nobody prompts this. Jenn just lands there again on her own, 56 episodes later. Year 1's next frontiers are year 2's content. Similarly, mental health doesn't disappear after year 1 either. It just changes shape. Corey Phelps mentioned in her appearance.
The next frontier in wellness. Oh, that's a stumper. I think it's the slowing down aspect, anything that's causing us to step back and slow down. So meditation and breath work, I really think they're already pretty popular, but they are making their way into every corner of the world and in people's lives that would never have actually been open to it before.
So Corey, there in year 2, and Nandar Matari back in year 1, circle the exact same idea of meditation and breathwork becoming mainstream, no longer fringe or woo-woo. And in looking back, I saw it. 2 guests a year apart. Coincidence? I don't think so. To me, it's proof that meditation and slowing down are part of the zeitgeist.
If year 1's frontier was genetics, year 2's is metabolic health. And one guest in particular turns out to matter more than anyone realized at the time.
I think the next frontier is going to be really doing this with our digital tools, and how can these be agents of positive behavior change in our lives? Because fundamentally, we're not going to reverse our chronic disease epidemics if we don't change the way we're living. And I'm interested in how tools can scale for that. And hopefully that they will actually help people tap into really understanding their bodies and getting into a whole renewed sense of somatic awareness. So I think it's going to be like a boomerang. Like, we use advanced tech-like tools, but we actually come back to the basics: eating healthily, eating whole foods, eating close to the earth, exercising, getting more sleep, engaging with loved ones to reduce our stress. So how can we use technology to get us back to the basics and really understand our bodies and feel what's happening inside of us?
That was Dr. Casey Means, and she was already the founder of a metabolic health company when she sat down with me. And I don't think anybody could have predicted that 5 years later, she'd be nominated to serve as the U.S. Surgeon General. And even then, back in 2020, she was saying the tech is only worth it if it gets us back to fundamentals. That line keeps resurfacing and will continue to. This also had me thinking back on my experience with Casey Means. I remember something from her pre-interview that never made it into the recorded conversation. And I pushed back on her a bit on the data collection piece and more of the human behavior side of it. I asked whether they'd considered any protocols for the data potentially feeding disordered behavior or obsession. And she told me that they hadn't really had that as part of any of their conversations. And the everyday consumer's constant glucose monitor, that's what she was building. And now it's something I use. So that early gap, it really stuck with me.
Here's the verdict on Dr. Casey Means. Metabolic health as a frame for overall health becomes one of the defining ideas of Salad with the Side of Fries podcast as a whole, and it keeps building for years. The more striking hit is smaller and stranger. 4 years after Dr. Casey's interview aired, a Year 6 guest mentions her by name without any prompting from Jenn. She says she got off a call with Dr. Casey Means, the author of a book called Good Energy. It's striking that a guest from Year 2 becomes influential enough that a Year 6 guest is following her work. That's beyond a prediction coming true. That's a guest becoming part of the story she predicted. Also in Year 2, gut health gets its first real mention in Salad with the Side of Fries history. And one guest, Mike Millner, is remarkably honest about how early it still is.
I think that where we're going to see a big movement towards gut health and understanding the connection more between the gut and the brain. I don't think that we've even scratched the surface. We've come a long way, and I think we're like 2% of the way there. Continuing to unpack all of the differences with gut microbiome and bacteria diversity and how it influences our brain and our cognitive function. And I think that is already starting, but I think it's going to continue as like the big thing that really just takes the science world by storm.
Here's the verdict on 2%. Mike Millner undersold it. Gut health does not just become a frontier answer again. It becomes the single most repeated specific topic in Year 5 of Salad with the Side of Fries, with a guest calling it the hottest topic even in Silicon Valley. 2% turned into most of the conversation in under 3 years. Then there's the guest, Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, who said the quiet part loudest.
The advances in technology, in how we're going to be using gene therapies to affect people's biology is vast, and we don't even fully know it. So we got like technology like CRISPR, where we can actually dynamically modify the genome. We're going to see a big push with big tech to try to incorporate what we now have as wearable technology into the human body. Mark my words, you heard it on Salad and Fries first. Elon Musk is working on a lot of like implantable stuff, implanting things on the spinal column to be able to make the human a computer.
You heard it on Salad with a Side of Fries first. That's a bold thing to put on the record. I was thrilled to have it. And this is the guest I mentioned back in Volume 1 of this series last week, the one who echoes Wade Lightheart's cyborg line almost word for word about a year later.
Here's the verdict on the human as computer. We're still waiting, same as Wade Lightheart's version a year earlier. This exact prediction is made a third time in Year 7 of Salad with the Side of Fries, about Neuralink specifically. 3 guests, 3 different years, the same vision of the future. And as of this recording, none of it has arrived at scale. Wade said that freight train had already left the building. Well, 7 years later, it's still not here. Not every Year 2 frontier answer points to a wearable or an implant. A couple of them point to a jar of green powder, like Catharine Arnston in her episode, The Algae Advantage.
Converting all of our hospitals into preventative medicine, embracing all the old traditions that existed before the pharmaceutical companies got a hold of us.
Catherine sells algae for a living, so that's her green powder. The next frontier in her answer says medicine ought to spend more time preventing illness than treating it after the fact. And this is certainly a theme that we keep returning to for years.
Another green powder is CBD. Back in Volume 1 of this series, Dr. Robert Shire made a case for CBD research opening up. And as mentioned, Salad with the Side of Fries would do a full episode on it the very next year. That featured guest, Sarah Nilsen, included CBD in her opinion of the next frontier.
I really do feel like CBD is just scratching the surface. That's just one of the cannabinoids in the plant. And they're doing so much research about the other cannabinoids and really drilling down targeted cannabinoids and terpenes over the next decade. We're going to see so many advancements and mainstreaming of using this plant for medicinal purposes that I'm just really, really grateful to have a small role in learning about it and sharing about it. And if we had this conversation in 10 years, it would be a much different conversation.
Dr. Shire predicted this in year 1. Now in year 2, Sarah is living it. And I think that's about as fast as any frontier answer comes true.
Dr. Shire isn't the only year 1 voice getting a year 2 echo. Remember Andrea Owen? She talked about sobriety and what we choose to normalize. This year 2 guest picks up almost the same thread from a different angle. Here's Jay Shifman.
I think it's embracing the whole person. You and I talked on my show about how stupid it is we still use BMI. We treat people as examples of a whole instead of as themselves. It's why we lump everybody with addiction into the same bucket. It's why, if somebody is overweight, we measure them against another overweight or non-overweight person instead of recognizing them as their own person.
Jay and Andrea are both pushing against the same tendency in our medical system, sorting people into categories instead of truly seeing them as individuals. And this thread, too, continues on in later years of Salad with a Side of Fries.
Year 2 closes with 2 guests circling a different kind of frontier, what a body is allowed to look like. And they're not the only ones asking that question this year. Another episode, The How of Body Love and Acceptance, runs the same conversation from yet another angle. 3 separate episodes on body positivity in a single year is more than a coincidence. It's a reflection of a culture having the same argument with itself in public.
I think we're moving towards it right now, thankfully. And that is something I wish I had seen at 10, 12, 16, 18 years old, was that you don't have to be a size 0, 5'10", with a perfect tan and blonde hair to be beautiful. You can be beautiful in your own skin, create your own confidence at any weight, any size, any shape. We're changing the mold. We're shifting. And social media, we talk a lot of negative things about it, but I think social media has really helped push us in that direction.
I think the next frontier in wellness, big corporations, these large health and wellness corporations, especially big brands like Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, they're going to start having more body positivity incorporated in their brands. They're going to start having way more models in it, because you see them here and there, but you're going to start seeing way more plus size models within their campaigns. And you're going to start seeing plus size mannequins within these athletic health and wellness brand stores. I think we're starting to slowly accept different body types, finally.
Sarah Malouf and Farah M. Green, respectively, both see this clearly. Body positivity certainly does go mainstream. Plus size representation does show up in campaigns that never had it before. And it reminds me of my conversation with Mulaney Rogers from year 1. In volume 1 of this series, I mentioned to keep her name in mind. And well, here we are. This is the same thread now. And hang with us, because a year 4 guest predicts the exact pendulum swing away from everything that Sarah and Farah are in year 2 celebrating. And I think what's even more incredible is that by year 7, we see where these predictions all land. So listening back to year 2 now, what strikes me is how much of it comes down to those 2 words, precision and permission. Everyone reaching for precision, more data, more tools. Casey Means, Natasa Billeci, Tim James, all of them chasing a sharper, more exact version of health. And at the same time, an entirely different crowd is finally getting permission. Chad and Amy's clients getting permission to train from home. Listeners getting permission from Sarah and Farah to stop chasing a body that truthfully was never realistic. Listeners getting permission from Sarah Nilsen to take a plant seriously that Dr. Shire only hoped for the year before. Maybe precision was the tool while permission was the point. And I continue to go back to what Dr. Casey Means said about more advanced tools so we can come back to the basics. Mike Millner said we were 2% of the way there on what we understood about the gut. And that's about where 2 leaves all of us. 2% of the way to precision and starting to give ourselves permission. Before we wrap up completely, one more thing. True to form, on Friday, this week has a bite-sized bonus episode. In it, we're talking about kombucha. So you've probably seen it at the grocery store, in drink fridges at like fast casual restaurants, maybe even in your own fridge. People make a lot of claims about this functional beverage. And to me, it always begs the question, is it worth the money? Or are you paying like $8 for some fizzy tea? So we're going to look at it on Friday in this week's bite-sized bonus episode. Be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENN-TREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. Hearing from you is absolutely the highlight of my day. Your questions, your ideas, your takeaways. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your coach. And thank you for listening each week, each year, and beyond. 7 years and counting. It really means the world to me to have you here and to have you give back to the show that gives to you every week. So if you're not already a member, join us in the Happy Healthy Hub. You'll go to asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and of course, your health too. On top of interview episodes in full video with behind the scenes pieces, your 24/7 Ask Me Anything on the community board, you'll get this week's recipe for the fluffy almond flour pancakes. So until next week, remember, precision is a tool, not a destination. Be sure to give yourself permission to trust the body behind the data.
Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.